Brad Pitt remains one of Hollywood's most protected golden boys, while Angelina Jolie spent years framed as the industry villain. But public perception is finally hitting a wall of undeniable public records. Behind the calculated red carpets and multi-million-dollar box office runs lies a carefully engineered PR shield that buried unsealed FBI plane records, past controversies, and a $20 million post-Katrina housing lawsuit. The internet spent nearly a decade debating two conflicting celebrity narratives, yet the most definitive receipt did not come from tabloid headlines or crisis managers. It came from all 6 of their children, who quietly and legally erased the name Pitt the moment they turned 18. The court of public opinion is finally shifting from carefully curated PR spin to documented reality. How did one of Hollywood's biggest machines lose control of the narrative? Let us look at the receipts. To really see where this narrative completely fractured, you have to go back to September 2016 on a private flight from France to Los Angeles. For years, the trades and tabloids framed it as some vague marital argument that just got out of hand. According to federal records and sworn court filings, the confrontation started before they even boarded and escalated mid-air. The files state Pitt grabbed Jolie by the head, shook her, shoved her into a bathroom wall, and punched the ceiling of the plane repeatedly. When one of the kids stepped in verbally to protect their mom, records show he allegedly lunged at his own underage child. Jolie intervened physically, and the filings state he choked one child, struck another in the face, and poured beer and red wine over his family during the multi-hour flight. 5 days later, Jolie filed for divorce. Page 6 later published the photographic evidence handed over to investigators showing deep bruising on her hands, elbows, and back. Yet, despite physical documentation and federal witness interviews, no criminal charges were ever filed by the LA County Department of Children and Family Services or federal prosecutors. And for anyone asking why the feds did not arrest him, the unsealed FOIA records say it was purely about jurisdictional red tape over international airspace, not because those bruises were not real. Instead of any real accountability, the story was immediately handed over to crisis management. Tabloid headlines quickly rebranded a documented domestic crisis into an exhausting, messy custody war where both parties were painted as equally toxic. But behind studio doors, a coordinated media strategy was already rolling out to make sure only one career walked away clean. What followed was not just standard denial, it was a multi-million-dollar playbook designed to turn public opinion completely against her. The public reaction that followed was a textbook case of collective cognitive dissonance. The moment photos of physical trauma and sealed federal reports hit the internet, the comment sections did not demand answers from a beloved leading man. Instead, viral posts immediately pivoted to dissecting Jolie, relying on the oldest Hollywood trope in the book, framing outspoken women as crazy, bitter, or vindictive. Comment sections across Reddit and X flooded with claims that she faked her bruises, dragged out custody for money, or was simply trying to ruin a successful man's career out of spite. That shift was not an accident. Industry analysts pointed out that Pitt leaned on the exact same crisis PR apparatus seen in the Johnny Depp and Justin Baldoni controversies. The playbook is consistent: turn the woman into an unhinged caricature, feed online algorithms misogynistic talking points, and position the man as a quiet, stoic victim who just wants to move on. An anonymous high-level producer even told the New York Post that while Jolie is talented, she is fundamentally a nut whose accusations unfairly hurt Pitt. That single quote sums up how the industry operates. It does not matter how many federal receipts or medical photos exist. Hollywood protects bankable leading men while reducing the mother of his kids to a tabloid villain. That dynamic escalated even further in the high-stakes battle over Chateau Miraval, where Los Angeles Superior Court filings revealed Pitt refused to buy out Jolie's stake unless she signed an exhaustive non-disclosure agreement specifically barring her from speaking about domestic abuse outside of court. For years, that PR spin controlled the narrative. But the crisis team hit a wall they could never script. 6 kids who spent years staying silent, only to launch a coordinated legal strike the second they turned 18. For years, Pitt's team pushed a specific counter-narrative: parental alienation. Whenever the fractured family dynamic made headlines, anonymous sources ran to tabloids claiming Jolie was running a calculated campaign to poison the kids against their loving, heartbroken father. It is a convenient defense that shifts all accountability onto the mother while framing the patriarch as the ultimate victim. But that excuse completely collapsed the moment those kids turned 18 and took control of their own names. These were not orchestrated press releases, they were quiet, deliberate legal actions. Knox followed by dropping the name from his official graduation diploma. The Los Angeles Superior Court officially approved the legal petition, formally finalizing her name change from Shiloh Jolie Pitt to Shiloh Jolie. When 6 siblings independently spend their own money and file legal petitions to drop a world-famous surname the exact second they turn 18, at what point does the public finally stop buying the parental alienation excuse? Drop your take on where that line actually sits, because watching adult children make that choice publicly says everything court filings could not. Grown adults do not coordinate permanent legal repudiations across nearly a decade unless their lived experience behind closed doors demanded it. The PR narrative ran straight into the documented actions of the only people who were actually there. And if you are tired of mainstream media burying these receipts, subscribe right now, because what his son Pax posted next blew the entire cover wide open. If anyone still needed proof that this fracture was not just maternal influence, Pax put it in writing years earlier. He called his adoptive father a world-class a-hole and a despicable person who proved his cruelty over and over again. Pax wrote directly that Pitt had no consideration or empathy toward his 4 youngest children, stating they literally trembled in fear whenever they were around him. He stated plainly that Pitt made the lives of those closest to him a constant hell, ending with a warning that the truth would eventually come out. Neither Pitt nor his legal team ever issued a formal denial of that post. Instead, the crisis team went right back to the exact same script, briefing outlets that Pitt was heartbroken, loves his kids unconditionally, and misses them terribly. It is a classic deflection tactic common in toxic family dynamics. When faced with direct statements of fear and estrangement from their own kids, performative parents rarely take accountability. They stage public grief to manage optics. The public was expected to believe that 6 individual kids were brainwashed while ignoring the written words of a teenager describing genuine fear in his own home. The PR strategy needed everyone to look away from Pitt's personal track record, but that curtain was already falling apart. The double standard becomes impossible to ignore when you compare how their personal histories are treated. For over 2 decades, every eccentric detail of Jolie's 20s, from wearing a vial of blood with Billy Bob Thornton to early tabloid feuds, was used to permanently brand her as unstable and untrustworthy. Meanwhile, her actual track record, over 20 years as a United Nations Special Envoy and her historic public health advocacy through her double mastectomy, is constantly written off by critics as performative PR. Pitt's own controversial past, on the other hand, was quietly scrubbed from cultural memory. Public records show a clear pattern of him dating teenage girls throughout his 20s, including 17-year-old Juliette Lewis when he was 27, 17-year-old Christina Applegate when he was 26, and 15-year-old Shalane McCall when he was 24. Women get villainized for their 20s forever. Men with documented red flags get collective amnesia. This double standard is not a fluke. Hollywood will forgive a charming man for almost anything, but a woman? She has to be the flawless, saint-like victim just to be taken seriously. Brad just had to flash a smile. But that Teflon shield did not just bury questionable relationship histories, it also helped conceal a massive financial and humanitarian scandal that left real families homeless in the wake of an American disaster. The family drama was just the tip of the iceberg. Behind the humanitarian brand was an 8-figure scandal that left real working-class people ruined. In 2007, under the guise of saving New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, the Make It Right Foundation became his biggest PR flex and his most catastrophic failure. Pitt launched the nonprofit promising sustainable, eco-friendly homes for low-income families in New Orleans' Lower Ninth Ward. The project earned him international praise, branding him as a visionary humanitarian architect who actually showed up for vulnerable communities. But the reality on the ground was a complete disaster. Families who sank their life savings into what was marketed as green architecture were left physically sick and financially wiped out. So by 2018, residents took him to federal court. For Pitt, the legal fallout was quietly handled by corporate attorneys, while his big-budget studio projects moved forward without a single delay. Jolie spent decades fighting tabloid narratives over vintage gossip, while Pitt's systemic project failures, dating history, and legal battles were completely separated from his box office brand. If an A-list actress had fronted a charity that left disaster victims with toxic, rotting homes, would Hollywood and the internet have ever let her headline a multi-hundred-million-dollar blockbuster again? Tell me how that double standard plays out in today's media cycle. His box office numbers might keep climbing, but no PR budget on earth can rewrite the public record or buy back the family that chose to leave him behind. Hollywood can trade uncomfortable truths for box office numbers, but you cannot PR your way out of your own kids erasing your name in open court. Does any amount of charm save a legacy that your family dismantled? Drop your thoughts below, hit subscribe for more unfiltered receipts, and I will see you in the next one.